Well, it is 1 o'clock. I welcome everybody to the meeting today. It is Streamline Air Permit for facilities committed to green tier. And the program is brought to you by Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the Green Tier Program, the SGP Program, FTA, Flexographic Technical Association, Great Lakes Graphics Association, Printing United Alliance, and then TLMI, the Tag and Label Manufacturers Institute. Your moderator today is Joe Lyman. I'm president of the Great Lakes Graphics Association. We represent printers, packagers, finishers, converters, tag and label manufacturers, and the allied print industry throughout Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. A little bit about webcast logistics. All attendees are muted, all the ones that we can. If you have a question or comment, please use the chat box on the right side frame of the software program. And I will unmute myself to ask the presenter the question. And questions can always be answered at the end of the program. This webcast is being recorded, and we will send that that recording to you in the next few days. And then, of course, information will follow with that recording and an email. Today's agenda, we'll have welcome and introductions. We'll do sustainable green printing partnership, information about that. We will have information about the Green Tier Program. We'll have information about streamlined air permits, so the registration operating permits or ROP, new ROP-G for green tier facilities. And then we'll have case studies from 2 ROP-G recipients, the motivational factors, advantages, operational flexibilities, and other issues. So at this time, I'd like to welcome today's speakers. We have Gary Jones, who is the Director of EHS Affairs for Printing United Alliance. He has over 35 years of experience improving assistance to the print industry in the EHS and sustainability areas. Jenny Burkholz is a Green Tier Project Coordinator for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. She has nearly 10 years of experience working with the environment. She enjoys supporting Wisconsin businesses along their sustainability paths. We have Renee Lesjak-Bashel. She is an environmental assistant coordinator at DNR. Renee has provided small business assistant and worked closely with the print industry for over 20 years and started as an engineer working for DNR in the DNR Air program 30 years ago. Catherine Youngworth is a compliance supervisor for the Lawton Standard Company. She has been with Lawton for 20 years and started as an accountant for her first 3 years and moved to compliance for the past 17 years. And finally, we have Justin Reichert. He is the Director of Environmental Health and Safety for Serigraph Incorporated. He has worked in paper and printing industry for nearly 10 years. Welcome, speakers. Now we'll have an update on Sustainability Management System certification within the SGP program.
Thanks, Joe. Oh, yeah, thanks, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad you could join us today. We have a very full agenda, so I'm going to take a little bit of time and walk us through the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership. Basically, the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership, or SGP for short, is essentially, as Joe mentioned, a sustainability management system certification program for the printing industry. Next slide, please. The SGP partnership is a leading nonprofit accreditation organization promoting sustainability in all print processes throughout the U.S. and Canada. In fact, we've just created, or the program has just released a certification program for suppliers as well as printers. So the community that's covered by SGP is always expanding, although the primary focus is printing, and so it's printers and suppliers. SGP advocates best practices and innovation among the print community stakeholders. And of course, it helps align the industry and its customers to pursue a more accountable, sustainable supply chain, because of course, printing is always in that supply chain. Next slide. SGP has three core elements. The first is the creation and management of a sustainable management system. The second is incorporation of best practices into your operation. And the third part is what we call our sustainability dashboard. And to me, the sustainability dashboard is a key element and advantage of the SGP program, because it essentially allows you to track your sustainability efforts. Part of the criteria to become certified under the program is to track your metrics, and the dashboard actually allows you to capture those metrics and actually displays them in understandable format. And the sustainability dashboard also acts as your organizer, that you end up uploading all your programs and your procedures and your policies and everything to demonstrate that you're meeting the criteria for the SGP program. Next slide. The SGP certification program has a variety of criteria that a company needs to meet. You have to, as I mentioned, you have to have an SMS or sustainable management system. You have to have a policy to document your commitment to sustainability. You have to have a formal communication system for your internal and external stakeholders. You have to have a sustainability committee internally that you meet on a regular basis to identify opportunities for sustainable activities within your facility. As I mentioned, you need to measure and monitor key performance indicators, which are considered metrics. You have to do an annual internal review of your entire SMS, along with upper management approval. And most importantly, because sustainability is a continuous improvement project, you have to undertake an annual continuous improvement project. The Sustainable Green Printing Partnership doesn't tell you what that project is. And that project comes up organically through your program, and typically that's an activity for your sustainable committee to identify. Next, please. Most importantly, there's a third-party audit. So to have a program that's actually credible and transparent, it has to be done through an independent third party. The Sustainable Green Printing Partnership is actually independent of any trade association in the printing industry. It was set up that way on purpose. In addition, for a facility to become certified, they have to actually undergo a third-party audit. And basically, that means there's an external auditor who's been trained in the program, will come into your facility, visit the facility, review all your program, look at all your documentation, look at your training records, look at all your compliance records, look at your metrics to make sure that you're in fact meeting the criteria. And if you satisfy all the criteria, then you're granted your certification. Once you're certified, you have to be re-audited every 2 years, so it's not an annual audit. And so the 2-year cycle in terms of auditing has worked out very well. And really, one thing to mention in terms of the costs are kept to a minimum because, as we said, it's a certification program that was developed for the printing industry and actually by the printing industry, although it is an independent third-party type of program. Next slide, please, Joe. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Jenny, who's going to walk us through the Green Tier program.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, Joe, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So the Green Tier program is the Wisconsin DNR's flagship program, providing credible recognition to Wisconsin businesses that go beyond compliance while striving for continual improvement. It's a unique program in the country. In Wisconsin, Green Tier is written into Wisconsin law, where other states across the nation have programs, but not necessarily they are not written into law. So with what's written into law, it's a really nice program. Even though it's in law, we consider ourselves non-regulatory because participants are volunteering to join the program. So it's free and voluntary. There's no cost to join other than the cost that you maintain at your business for resources needed to maintain your program eligibility. But it's for businesses that are trying to, like it says, strive towards superior environmental performance and continual improvement, trying to reduce your environmental impact across what you produce and what you do at your facilities. And, you know, it also allows for innovation and ways to meet your requirements and go beyond compliance in your different touches to the environment than what regulations can tell you to do or ask you to do. Next slide, please, Joe. So who's in green tier in Wisconsin? There's 56 different companies with over 170 facilities throughout the state. You can see the dots on the map. So it, you know, we have participants across the whole state, and it's from a variety of industries, from the Lawton Standard Group that we have today, that's a foundry, to Serigraph, who's a printer. But we go from, you know, heavy manufacturing to service industries, agriculture. It runs the gamut across those 56 companies. So anybody is eligible to join, big and small companies alike. Next slide. There's 3 ways to participate in green tier. There's what's called a charter, and this webinar today is brought to you by one of our charters, the Printing Industries of Wisconsin charter. But really what those are groups of organizations working towards a shared environmental impact, looking for those improvements together, and they establish goals and kind of have a contract with themselves and the DNR to meet those goals. For most businesses, they join at the tier 1 or tier 2 level. And the difference is, for tier 1, it's for those businesses that are kind of wanting to, you know, take those first steps or next steps with their environmental journey. They're looking to be more sustainable. They're proactively managing environmental impacts and looking to see what they can do beyond that. And they have really involved management teams and a good culture within their business. Tier 2 is kind of the next level. It kind of it's for businesses that have a track record of environmental achievements. They're already, you know, taking those next steps, trying to do things beyond what the regulations require. They have a well-established environmental culture, environmental management system that's, you know, been implemented and working well for their business. And then in tier 2, they negotiate a contract with DNR. And the key to today is with the ROPG that we're presenting later, you have to be a tier 2 member or a participant in green tier to take advantage of the ROPG air permit. Next slide. So why would a business choose green tier? What's in it for them? What benefits are there? Well, there's some benefits from the DNR, some commitments the DNR makes, including a single point of contact for them to have a navigator within the DNR. There's so a variety of things. You get our marketing, you get to use the green tier logo and that recognition from a state regulator. There's also flexibilities that are available, including the ROPG that we'll talk about, but other possible flexibilities you could have is monitoring and reporting flexibilities on the permits you already have. We just can't change the level of the permit regulations. Those are written into law. Those are unchangeable. But those are some things that we provide. And then, you know, having your environmental management system and just working towards this in your business, you know, you're pushing your company to go further to improve their environmental and business strategies. There's ways to find efficiencies in your building or in your business, reduce some of the risks, you know, identify and then reduce risks. And then those efficiencies should also help you reduce costs. And it kind of builds trust in your brand through your stakeholders. Next slide. So what do you need to do to join green tier? Well, first you have to have a clean environmental record, and the length of time for that record varies depending on which level of participation you'd want to join, but the minimum would be 5 years without a conviction or something brought in from the Department of Justice. You have to submit an application which really talks about your past and current environmental performance and what you plan to do for the future. You have to demonstrate a commitment to an environmental management system, or as Gary mentioned, a sustainable management system. For the printers on the call, if you're already an SGP printer, you can easily join green tier. We have an agreement that if you're in either program, you can join the opposite program, and there's no other requirements. There's stakeholder transparency through what you're telling and talking about. There's ties to the new ESG reporting that's coming up, and you know everybody is talking about. And then by volunteering to be in the program, you agree to some participant commitments which are, basically 3 items: having an environmental management system, having regular third-party audits of that system, and then submitting an annual report. Next slide. So if you have, you're interested in joining, and especially if you want to take advantage of the ROPG that we're talking about today, feel free to reach out to the Green Tier team at greentier@wisconsin.gov. We'll talk to you, help you decide on what participation level is best for you, and help you fill out the application. So if you want to go to the next slide, Joe, I'll turn it over to Renee to talk about the registration operation permits, or the ROPs.
All right, thanks, Jenny. Go to the next slide, please. So registration permits were designed as a faster way to permit facilities with lower emission rates. The registration permits are set up for facilities that fit into these different set categories of emissions thresholds. And then the conditions in the different permits ensure that the facility remains at that level or below, or it triggers them to apply for a different permit before they exceed the emissions level for that category. Next slide. The registration permits are faster both for the applicant as well as the department. The application is much shorter than a traditional operation permit application and is largely focused on questions that ensure the facility is eligible for that level of registration permit that they want to apply for. Once the application and supporting information like emissions calculations or modeling are submitted, the department can issue coverage within 15 business days. I will talk a little bit about some differences for the ROPG when we get to that point. Once covered, a facility has to maintain that eligibility, the different thresholds that are in the permit, and meet the other permit conditions, but they can make adjustments to the facility without getting another permit, so long as they continue to fit within the criteria for that permit. And then another benefit of that is if you're not needing to get a construction permit to make changes, you don't have any construction permit fees either. Next slide, please. So here's the current slate of registration permits that are available. We also call them ROPs. So you'll see that in the table, the different ROPs thresholds. The type A was issued first, and currently we've got 588 facilities covered at that 25% of the major source threshold for both criteria pollutants, which are like volatile organic compounds or VOCs, nitrogen oxides, and so on. And then the hazardous air pollutants are, or HAPs, those are the federal hazardous air pollutants that have to meet that threshold. There's still the requirement to comply with the state hazardous air pollutants in the normal fashion. Next, then we jump to the type C registration permit, and that's the printer specific registration permit that was actually issued second. We won't go into what happened with the different numbering and or letters. But anyway, so that was designed specific to printers. It offered a split threshold by allowing 25% of the major source threshold for criteria pollutants, but then 50% for the federal HAPs. Basically, the large majority of the printers are going to be emitting mainly VOCs, and a good portion of the VOCs are HAPs. So that gave them a little more flexibility to actually be eligible for a registration permit. A recent revision to that ROP-C, though, we included recent revisions to the RACT rules, which are the VOC rules for specific press types in the counties that are or have been designated as non-attainment for ozone. There were also some adjustments to the compliance conditions in the ROP-C. But there are also a number of printers that have type A and type B. Now the type B was issued not too long ago, and that was issued to give slightly larger facilities a more flexible option. Since that 2016, 137 facilities have taken advantage of that 50% threshold. But then the newest registration permit, the type G, is the one I'm going to go into a little more detail next slide. So the main eligibility criteria for ROPG, as Jenny has mentioned, is that the facility has to be in tier 2 for green tier. By guaranteeing that level of environmental scrutiny on your facility, you gain a permit at 80% of the major source threshold. And you also get all the other benefits that go along with that, including not needing construction permits so long as you maintain eligibility with those different criteria for the ROPG. And then in addition, the ROPG, which is different than the other ROPs, again, because of the environmental scrutiny being paid as a tier 2 facility, they are allowed to carry over certain source specific conditions from their traditional permit. There is a limited list, though. Not everything that might have applied to your facility gets carried over. That's kind of loses the purpose of a registration permit. But there are certain ones that might allow you to avoid more stringent requirements that are keeping your emissions lower in certain categories. But if you go through the application guide that's available for the ROPG, that talks about which conditions are allowed to be carried over. Let's see. Yeah, next slide. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so when you get to the type G registration permit options, there's 2 different scenarios, really. You're looking at facilities, say, that aren't in green tier yet, or they're not at tier 2 anyway, even if they might be in green tier. So we have a ROP G01, which gives a company time to get into that tier 2 level if you believe you can get into that within 18 months. Otherwise, you might need a little bit more time before you want to jump into this ROP G if it might take longer to get into tier 2. But once you're in the ROP G01, you work on your tier 2 process and get that environmental management system into place. And then you can get folded into the G02, which if you're an existing tier 2 facility already, that you can jump right into that G02 registration permit. And then once you're at that, once you've got both the tier 2 contract and the ROP G02, they both reference each other. So you'll have a statement in your tier 2 contract that you're maintaining the G02 as well. All right, next slide. So while the registration permits are not going to have all the same level of detail as a source specific permit does, the EAR program has worked with the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program to create resources to help ROP facilities maintain compliance with the requirements. So the registration permit webpage not only has different tabs that have links to the issued registration permits, so you know what you're applying to be covered under. It has links to applications, the application guides, some calculation examples. We also have then a tab for compliance resources for that ongoing compliance situation if you need assistance with it. We've got a compliance checklist. We've got some extra descriptions of certain requirements that are elements of the registration permit. And then the small business program sends out quarterly compliance reminders to all ROP facilities. And we retain the content of those emails for the last 2 years going back on this compliance tab. So in case you lose that email, you've got an opportunity to review those reminders. Next slide. All right, so here's all the key links if you want to get into the registration permits. And specifically for printers, we've got a great printer portal that offers you a lot of resources to help you with the full scope of environmental compliance. Next slide. And this is Alex Torres is the current ROP coordinator. So if you're really interested right now to talk about the ROPG application, you can contact Alex directly. Otherwise, the more generic ROP email on the previous slide will get you to either Alex or his backup if he's not around at a particular time. All right, next slide. Yep, I think I will be turning it over to Justin then to talk about serigraph.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Renee. So I'm Justin. I am the director of EHS for serigraph. We are located in West Bend, Wisconsin. So if you don't know where that is, it's about a half hour north of Milwaukee. Serigraph is a printing company for all intents and purposes, founded back in 1949. We fall under the IATF and then the ISO, of course. Next slide. So what do we do and who we help? Our services, it's more than just a printing company. We do printing solutions, decorative molding. We help companies with campaign material, if you will, management, print fulfillment, and then R&D, of course. Our markets are listed here, but definitely not limited to appliance, automotive, consumer goods, medical, power and outdoor is a big one for us as well. Next slide, please. So these are kind of some of the products that we do. It's everyday products that you see. Decorative plastic is one of our divisions, and then our specialty division kind of breaks down into the things you see on the lower left. So decals, fabric printing, banners, those types of things. And then our IG division focuses on the plastics and the molding aspect, as well as decals for power industrial and power vehicles and ATVs. Next slide. So green tier for us and for me. So serigraph got into the green tier program back in 2006. So that's when they started the journey. We started here. 5 years later, we entered into the tier 2 program. We actually had the Secretary of the DNR, Secretary President Cole, on site 3 weeks ago, along with Renee on the call, and then a whole gambit of legislators and dignitaries and whatnot, as we signed our contract to be the longest standing business in the state of Wisconsin to be green tier 2. So pretty exciting. We had a nice celebration here. We were very honored to be a part of that. It's a commitment that obviously the leadership team felt 15 years ago to really start the process. And 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, we went into the green tier 2, which just stepped it up a little bit. And then we were able to take advantage of the ROP-G currently. Next slide. I believe that was the last. Yep. I will turn it over to Catherine.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine. I am the compliance supervisor at the Lawton Standard Company, which is the parent corporate company of the Lawton Company. We are a foundry, and you may be wondering, what the heck does the foundry have to do with all of these paper things? And first of all, we make gears for pattern printing equipment, and also we also share a very similar journey as serigraph with the green tier 2 process, and also with the ROP-G. So we can go to the next slide. First of all, the Lawton Company was founded way back in 1879, and we're a 5th generation company that makes gray and ductile iron castings. We have been in De Pere pretty much the whole time. We did relocate many years ago from downtown. Now we're into industrial park. We make large iron castings, and in addition to our castings, we also have a pattern shop and a machine shop. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little taste of the industries that we serve, we take care of the mining industry, oil and gas, mining and rigging, natural gas power, and also heavy off-road equipment and some agricultural components as well. Next slide, please. We have been a green tier participant since 2013, and we too started as a green tier 1 membership. Then we moved to green tier 2 members in 2019. The main reason for that transition is it kind of followed our path of development. Green tier 1 was ideal for us because it gave us a chance to publicly say that we are committed to being a sound environmental partner, and also to establish some groundwork for how we were going to demonstrate that commitment. And then the way the whole system developed, when we learned about green tier 2 and the RAP-G, it seemed like a natural transition for us because we were comfortable in our path as a tier 1, and we're always looking to improve. And so having the RAP-G and going to green tier 2 gave us that little extra nudge. So we decided to jump in. We were the first business to actually have a RAP-G permit. It was an interesting process. Actually, we partnered with the DNR and kind of drafted and tweaked the permit as we went along and as we were discovering where something might have been missed, or if any other changes needed to be made. We kind of did that in partnership, which was pretty cool. The benefits, which Renee has already addressed, seemed obvious to us. We were able to simplify the air permitting process by assessing the entire facility instead of each individual processes. I don't know if many of the other participants on the webinar have an operating permit through the DNR. It's a much more complex site-specific air permit, and it can be a long process to get that put in place. And then if you have to make any changes, or if there's any change in what customers want and you need to make changes to your business, you have to go through a construction permit process, which also can be pretty involved. We'll put it that way. And by going with the RAP-G permit, it just simplified that whole series of events significantly, and also reduces the timeline as well. The other huge thing that we see for our future is we can expand as long as we stay within the RAP-G limitations of 80% of the major thresholds. And so we have room to grow, and it's not going to require a lot of additional permitting. So that gives us flexibility. And again, in our industry, our ability to react to changes in our customer base or in our product mix requires that we can respond fairly quickly. And by having this RAP-G allows us to do that and not have to put operational changes or any kind of thing like that out 18 months. So it also, the other benefit too is it's also incented us to really work on our 14,001 management system. We did have the equivalent system, which is referred to in the green tier legislation, but we went to the official 14,001 in 2019. And the other thing that's kind of cool is we get to be recognized as a tier 2 participant, and I get to join printing people. So kind of cool. Next slide, please. Just to kind of go over what our process was, it was very similar to the route that Renee described, where we started off with the ROP G01. Because we were a green tier 1 participant, that's where we had to start. And then we had to go through the progression to get to green tier 2, and then that would roll into the ROP G02 permit. Of course, as Renee also said, you have to first make sure you qualify. And once that hurdle is crossed, then complete the application. And for us, we had to convert from our operating permit to a registration permit. So that meant closing several different loops and iterations of construction permits and that kind of thing, which may not be typical for your business, but it was the case for ours. And then we implemented our 14001 2015 ISO management system, got that certified. Then the next step was doing our green tier 2 contract. And this whole process took us 12 to 18 months to complete. Again, this is our specific path. It may be a much shorter timeline for you, depending on what your permit history is, but allow yourself 12 to 18 months to complete. And then the other plus is, if you can't get it done in those 18 months, you can apply for an extension too. So I feel like the whole concept has given us a lot of flexibility, which wasn't there in the past. And it also seems like it's going to be a great fit for us going forward. So that kind of wraps up what I have, I believe. Let's just check the next slide. Yeah, that's just my contact information. So back to you guys.
Sorry about that. It's a little tricky when your mouse falls asleep. So are there any questions? Unfortunately, I can't unmute everyone because it would be a little bit of a chaotic situation. We have a lot of people on the call today. However, if you use the chat feature on the right-hand frame of the software package, we'll take questions at this point. Any questions? Gary, you always have a question, don't you?
Oh, yeah, Joe, you have that list of questions we sent to ask the panelists.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
I unfortunately don't know that I got that. Not to say that I didn't get it, I just didn't see it. So I'm gonna you'll have to bear with me a second.
You want me to go ahead and read some of them off, Joe?
Yes, please.
Yeah, if
please.
you have them.
It's very difficult for me to find that.
All right, if we could start with Justin, since Catherine went through some of the details, but you could both answer this. How did you end up learning about the ROP G permit?
So for me, I have been with Serigraph for about 4 months now. So I kind of inherited the ROP G. I came from printing industry, paper. For 8 years, we had different ROPs throughout that time, but coming here, I was able to see what the ROP G was. My first thought was, what happened here? Like, what is the ROP G? It was new. So after doing some research, we have a very good single point of contact in Emma Wright for us. And just bouncing back, Jenny Berkholz, who's also on this call, they were able to really hold my hand and explain a lot of the processes. After finding out about it and talking to them and talking with the local leadership here, from what they knew, it really seemed like kind of a no-brainer for our company. It's goal is sustainability. I think sustainability has no downside. It's something that everyone can get behind. And it's kind of just that continued benefit. So that's kind of where I came in with it. I don't know what Catherine says.
Thanks, Justin. Our situation was a little bit different. We had past contact with another person who was on a development team for brownfields, and through a variety of different contacts and through the air programming people and that kind of thing, that's how we found out about it. And since it was right on the cutting edge of the concept, it was really cool that we could address, you know, concerns of ours versus what the DNR was looking for and what kind of goals they wanted to meet by having the ROPG. So it was the same in the sense that we had a lot of hand holding, which was great, by Alex Torres, which was the contact person for ROP permits, and also from a couple other people in the air division. It was a very good experience, and I felt like it was very much an exchange of information and looking toward a common goal.
Great, thanks. Can either of you kind of compare what that experience was like compared to any previous permits that you've worked through for the air program?
Are you really sure you want me to answer that?
Well, you know, we don't have that much time, so.
Oh, the ROPG is light years better.
Yeah, and I just caveat off that. It's something that, you know, the DNR, anytime you're dealing with permits, it's very cumbersome. And for any of us probably on this call, you know, when the DNR shows up, it's not always a happy day. But just going through this ROPG and having that dialogue back and forth, it kind of changes that whole dynamic for me, at least. We're able to kind of have that, like I said before, that one-on-one conversations that go back and forth. It's not just pushing down, it's really having that all-inclusive benefit from both sides. Obviously, the DNR has responsibilities, but they also want to see businesses succeed. And I think once you get that mentality, these ROPGs just kind of seem like the no-brainer moving forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I just feel like the ROP permits, especially the ROPG, allows our systems to work. That's what our management systems are designed to do, is to avoid threats and improve sustainability. And that's the whole point of continuous improvement and the environmental management systems.
Great, that kind of leads into my next question. So how has it been to integrate the ROPG into your operations, you know, and if you've had to make any changes to actually allow you to comply with the permit, or, you know, has there been anything easier or more challenging about integrating the two together?
I guess I'll go first. For us as a company, I think the integration just kind of made sense with the goals and the alignment and the site that our leadership team had. It's something that everyone here in the facility, whether you're a new hire or someone that's been here for 40 years, you know that we are in green tier, and you know that we're a green tier 2 facility. We're very proud of that. We boast that. Also in our community, we try to brag about it and get involved in the other nuances. So I think that integration really changed when dealing with our customers. Obviously, there's customers everywhere and they all have options, and showing them that we integrate these different policies and procedures and processes into place I think speaks volumes on the kind of business we are. Easier or more challenging than the last permit, I would say easier by far. It isn't that the last permit, the other ROPS aren't okay or there's any issues with them. But like I said, this one just you're more involved. You have a dialogue back and forth, and it just keeps you able to run the company and the business in the best possible way by truly looking at the environment. Obviously, we all want to leave the place better than we found it. We said that during the Green Tier 2 celebration, but I mean, it's a true statement for everyone on this call, I'm sure. We all have businesses, and our businesses have a goal of making money, and working together to find that perfect mix is really beneficial, and has been for us.
As far as our experience goes, I would say converting from our operating permit to the ROP-G was seamless. I really didn't have any issues as far as having to make any modifications or anything to comply with the ROP. It was a very simple, logical, and progressive move. It wasn't anything that was awkward whatsoever.
Okay. And so, we've talked about the benefit of not having to get a construction permit if you need to make some changes or modifications that you can make without changing your eligibility. I don't know if Serigraph's necessarily had time yet, but maybe Catherine, have you guys had any modifications made, or is Serigraph anticipating any changes that you're looking forward to utilizing under the ROP-G?
I can start with that one. We have not physically gone through any changes yet, but we are contemplating a modification, and it just is kind of a relief to say, well, we don't have to build in X amount of time for the construction process to get approved. It's what we're doing is within our limits, obviously, and so it kind of allows us to proceed with evaluating different options without having that time hurdle in there.
Yeah, and I'll add in. So, Catherine said it best. I mean, you reduce the time and money involved with construction permits. We don't have any big construction plans per se, but upgrading and updating our machinery kind of changes some of those dynamics. But we're able to have that dialogue with the DNR and say, hey, these are the changes we're making. This is going to change our emissions by this or that, and able to just work through that instead of having that hurdle as you go through the process.
Great. Joe, are there any questions in the chat?
Yes, we have one.
Okay.
Can you detail a little bit of logistics of a ROP-G permit holder is reaching the 80% threshold, or if they exceed it?
Oh, so that might be more on the regulatory side. So they're thinking that, what happens if you're close to 80% and you might be exceeding that. That's definitely, built into the keeping regular records and knowing in advance that you are getting close to that and you need to transition back out into a traditional source specific permit. And so if you make that change, which has been a similar process for any of the other registration permits, is if you're going to go over that eligibility threshold and you can't fit into another Streamline permit category, you need to get both a construction permit and then a full facility operation permit to make those changes and comply with all the operation permit requirements. Anything else out there?
Oh, can you give advice to a new EHS manager and what's available for the DNR standpoint and where I would access it to find a historical perspective? I think your webpage, Renee, is a perfect thing. Could you put that in the chat? And we'll also include it in the email that goes out.
Sure, let me get to that.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say, while Renee's looking for that, part of what we, I guess the benefits of working with the DNR under the printer charter is that Renee has created a printer portal that is your one-stop shopping, so to speak, for information from the DNR about regulatory programs, about the Green Tier program. And she put that the link into the chat. So that's really, I think, a good place to start. And the other thing I would suggest is that Renee and Jenny are also available to answer questions if you have specific questions, or you can always reach out to me as well. And I'll be more than happy to help answer any questions that you have. You know, if you're a new EHS manager, it can be a bit overwhelming, because there is a lot to absorb, but the printer portal is really designed to help you navigate through the regulatory process and be able to access all the resources that the DNR has. And the DNR has some extensive resources that they've made available for the printing industry under the charter. And again, it's a huge benefit that we enjoy in the printing industry, in working with the DNR and under the auspices of our charter.
Yep, and if you are certain that you have a permit and you not really sure where to find it, yep, Jenny's posted that air permit search page in there as well.
Excellent.
So that you can search for your own facility, find out what permits are on file, and then it also shows you the DNR air program contacts for your specific facility. So you can certainly start there or start with the small business contacts as well.
And if you want to know other permits beyond your air permits, you know, feel free to contact Renee or myself, and we'd be happy to help you find those.
Yeah, that's the bonus of starting at the small business website, is we've got the full range of permit types and resources on there. One last question for our ROPG folks. Any unexpected benefits that you've found having changed over to the ROPG, or anything that you might anticipate? Cost savings, administrative savings, anything that you haven't mentioned already?
Oh, since you mentioned cost savings, the ROPG is definitely cheaper than an operating permit. I don't know the exact dollars, but it seems to me it was quite a bit less expensive. Do you know that by chance, Renee?
Well, the application process for the ROPS are generally no cost because it's an operation permit. But since you went the G01 route to pull some, I think there might be a fee when you pull along some source specific permits conditions, and I'm forgetting what that is. I can check that out quick though.
I'll hop in while you're doing that. I think benefits for us as a company are just the availability to go as we go, not have to kind of hit the brakes and follow the certain regulations under the original ROPS. The ROP-G allows us to make those on-the-spot decisions as a leadership team and as a business. You know, VOCs and HAPs and all of these things are common acronyms in our world and anything we do with environmental health or safety. And they kind of fall into place, but the ROP-G allows us to kind of get through that stuff a little bit quicker, to look through all the mess and the gray area, in terms of what we can and what we can't have, and just following through that way. So for us, there's definitely unexpected benefits that we probably haven't even unlocked yet and haven't seen yet, but excited to see what else is in store for the ROP-Gs as it continues to seem to be a living and breathing and growing document as well.
Well, I'll have to confirm that cost. I'm not finding that fee right now, but we can include that in the email that Joe sends out after we close the webinar. Joe, do you want to go to that, scroll down to that next slide?
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, so now if anybody's interested in trying the ROP-G, the kind of application timeline would be, if you're not in green tier currently, start talking to one of the green tier staff about how to develop your environmental management system. And then if you're comfortable that your company can get to an EMS in 18 months that are allowed under the ROP-G 01, you could go ahead and apply for that and start getting into green tier. If you are at tier 1 and you do have an EMS already implemented, then talk to your green tier project coordinator. Then they can help you transition to the tier 2 contract. And at the same time, you can start talking to the ROP coordinator and start looking into the ROP-G application. You can do that simultaneously, but you just be aware that the ROP issuance might go faster than the tier 2 contract or vice versa. So you'll have to just kind of work on those at the same time. But if you happen to be a tier 2 facility, you can jump right in and talk to the ROP coordinator about the application. And then when you get the ROP-G coverage, then it'll be noted in your tier 2 contract and you'll be ready to go. Anything to add there, Jenny?
No, that about covers it. Just, reach out to us, greentier@wisconsin.gov.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate everybody's time today. Again, thank you so much for spending the time with us speakers. We really appreciate you spreading the knowledge on ROP-G, as well as Gary for providing us some information about SGP. Again, we will send out an email with the recording link, as well as some information about SGP, the green tier program, as well as ROP-G. With that, thank you everyone and have a great afternoon. Take care.